And here we go.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Earth's Mightiest Critics Kicking the Seat review of The Life of Chuck. Much like this movie, directed by Mike Flanagan, this live stream contains multitudes. I have an embarrassment of riches today. We have a full house of wonderfully talented critics and, dare I say, friends to share this experience. Now, the spoiler banner is on down below because The Life of Chuck is open in limited release right now. This Friday, Friday the 13th, it will be in wide release, so you can go see it. If you have not seen it, then we highly recommend turning away and coming back and revisiting once you have, because there's a lot to talk about in this movie, and it is so spoilerific. It is so difficult to discuss this movie without getting into a lot of the surprises that we're starting off right away with the spoiler banner. So I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We are joined by Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive. We have Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front, David Fowley of Keeping It Real, Jeff York of The Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, and welcoming back to the show after a 7-year, I think, absence, Dave Canfield, aka the Creature Feature Preacher. The last time you were on, I believe, we were talking, with David about Annihilation, the Alex Garland film from forever ago.
We haven't aged at all.
Yeah, that is 7 years ago.
When you ban a guy, you don't mess around.
Well, and speaking of not messing around, you have a new Substack out, Mr. Canfield, called Creature Feature Preacher, which is linked down below. And you also have a podcast, Mind Frames, which, spoiler alert, I was on Mind Frames yesterday on an episode that will be coming out shortly, talking about, yes, the life of Chuck. Now, I was concerned. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go talk about this movie 2 days in a row. However, the sentiment, at least on this panel, for the most part, I know a lot of people here love this movie. That was not necessarily the case on the Mind Frames show. Yeah.
Oh.
So two different experiences. And I'm in the love camp, by the way, just to get out of the way. And so is Dave. So is the third, the second host on that show, Mr. Mike Cockrell, who gave us a bit of a run for our money in terms of opinions. So definitely check that out when it goes live. And links to all of Mr. Canfield's stuff will be, it's down below right now. I also want to say your latest Substack was concerned Bill Rebane's giant spider invasion. Now, by pure coincidence, or maybe not, given the theme of tonight's movie, Giant Spider Invasion was the film discussed this week on Mark Krawcheck's Spoiler Room podcast last night, or 2 nights ago. So, yeah, definitely check that out, everybody, and, be amazed. So, Life of Chuck, the phrase I keep hearing about this is life-affirming. It's a life-affirming movie written by Stephen King, adapted from a short story called The Life of Chuck, which appeared in his 2020 short story collection, If It Bleeds. Now, you might not think of Stephen King and life-affirming right out the gate, especially if this movie is opening on Friday the 13th, but it really is a charming, lovely, almost family film that we're going to discuss in great detail tonight, which is why we got the banner up. Jeff York, if you would not mind giving the...
Tough task.
It's a challenge. Can you synopsize this movie without giving anything away?
I think I can. It's told in 3 sort of chapters, but they're told in reverse, which is right off the bat one of the novel things of this novel and of this movie. There you go. It starts with a rather sort of almost King expected kind of thing of some sort of world catastrophe that seems to be happening. This apocalypse where the internet is shut down and there are all kinds of parts of California falling into the ocean, and it seems to be end times. And we sort of focus on a high school teacher and his estranged or ex-wife who's a nurse, and sort of their dealing with it and trying to figure out what's going on about it. Interestingly enough, they seem to keep coming across this display sort of as an almost ad on a billboard, and then it becomes sort of these sort of visions in windows where they're talking about thanking this one guy, Chuck, for his 29 years. And we're not quite sure what all that means.
39. Sorry.
Oh, 39 years. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
39 years. Yes, that's right. Pardon me. And that ends, but I'm not going to say exactly how because we'll talk about that. But then it goes back to Act 2. That was called Thanks, Chuck, as an act. And then the second act is called Buskers Forever. And there we see this character, this Chuck, who with his number of years, 39 years, is an actual person. And there's a narrator telling us a story. And he starts to sort of do this dance with a young woman in sort of with a busker who's playing as a street musician. And we sort of follow a little bit of his life and sort of what he's enjoying it and sort of coming out of his shell and talking about where he got this dancing from. And that's a very short segment, but it seems to be filled with joie de vivre and this sort of connection with these people and this young man full of vigor and brio. We then go to Act 1, which is, of course, the very first part of the story, albeit the third that were presented as filmgoers. And that is the young Chuck story and how he became the adult Chuck and sort of to these moments. And it actually completely changes sort of what the first two chapters mean. And it's an extended period where the crux of the film is spent showing his childhood and where he developed his sense of friendship, the multitudes inside of him, and all these different talents and possibilities that life offers you and you can choose in life, as well as the background about why he's into music and dance and sort of making the most out of life that he can, is sort of where he is in his life too, in crushes and how he came to sort of form relationships and of love and friendship, and maybe those two teachers that we saw, who one is now a nurse in the first part of the film. So it all weaves together, but it is very sort of spiritual, mystical, fantastical, but it's really about people and this singular person and what is deep inside that person and all the memories and thoughts and feelings and people we've met and how that is in what our life is, and makes more sense at the end. But I think it's also a movie or a short story that demands to be read a couple of times, because somehow, as you know these things, the flavors, the people, the sort of narrative takes on different meanings and dimensions when you know precisely what they mean.
But yeah, very well said. Yes.
Thank
Bravo,
you.
Did not see that coming.
Thank you. Right.
Did
Now,
you just do a little ding? Did I hear a little ding at the end of that, right? Or was that just coincidental?
Yeah.
That was Jeff rebooting.
Oh, I was like, wow, that's a ding.
He
Yeah.
update his windows over there. Yeah.
I'm the robot in Maybe Happy Ending, the Tonys from this year.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, Don is the resident school teacher, although school's out, so you should put all those bells
better be.
away, sir.
Yeah.
Come on.
Hell
That's
yes.
very
Yes,
funny.
they're gone.
All right, so I want to do two things.
Mhm.
I want to ask off the bat, who here has read the Stephen King short story?
Sorry. Oh.
Okay. Oh, Dave, I thought I was going to get you there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Secondly, I want to go around and very briefly get high level. I hate to do this, but it's a shorthand. It's a packed panel, kind of like high level, liked it, loved it, hated it, indifferent from each of you, just so I can kind of set figure out how to set this table. So I'll go first. I'm the host. I loved it. My second favorite film of the year, behind Sinners, which somehow seems thematically appropriate. Don, how about you?
Yeah, loved it. Probably third favorite film of the year. Yeah, it's a tricky one to wrap your arms around, but I'm in the love category.
Okay. Mr. Canfield, spoiler for, not for me, but for everyone else. Go ahead.
I got to tell you, this movie is a breath of fresh hope in dark times. And, you know, as I was watching characters deliver the dialogue, I kept thinking, I wish someone had been in my life when I was young or when I was going through different things to pinch my little cheeks and tell me what was going on.
The cheeks on your face. Yeah.
This is a rare accomplishment.
You talk about my parochials.
Dealing about, well, I would just rub you for good luck. I would just, you know. But,
Mutual. Reach over. We got it. Yep, come on over. Right through the screen. Yep. Missed it.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to catch you off there.
no, just that I think this is a rare accomplishment, not only in terms of adapting a very fine writer's material, but in dealing with the larger themes that are in it in such an emotionally compelling way.
Excellent. All right, Katie, how about you?
It's my favorite film of the year, and if you look at the neon little thing from Bloody Disgusting, you will see me quoting, "It's the best film of the year," which I do think it is. At the end, closing it out, that's me.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Always awesome.
Wow. All right. David Fowley.
Yes, present. I thought that this was going to be a biography written by Peppermint Patty, but I guess not. I saw this I didn't see this at a screening. I saw this with my wife on Sunday night, and I just kind of, knew that this would be a good movie for us. And sure enough, she loved it, and I loved it too. I feel like this is one of those movies that, like, it demands a revisit based on obviously how you feel about it, but it demands a revisit because if you really loved it, then you want to feel that again. And it's like, I wouldn't mind just checking back into a theater and watching this again. Yeah, that's my high level view on it.
Excellent. All right, Jeff, bring us home.
I too loved it and agree with just about everything that people said here. One of my top films of the year for sure. And I think it's one of those movies that changes you a little bit and changes each time you probably watch it from here on out as you see more and understand more a little bit. I think at first it's not afraid to be mysterious and maybe even a little oblique. And I think that's good in stories. I think too often everything is told, the screenwriting thing is that in the first 10 minutes, you're supposed to say what the theme is about and explain that to the audience. So they then look for that theme in subsequent half hours. But I think this remains a mystery, as life is, which is appropriate. And I think there's actually potentially some ways you can interpret certain parts of it if you want. And maybe the bigger, I think it's actually a little more obvious towards the end, but I think a lot of it is open to your feelings and emotion about what you're seeing too, and how people were and how events happen, if they are random or they are there to sort of serve as tests or patterns or whatever. But for me, it's intellectual as well as emotional, and it's rare that you find that in a movie. And I have to say, bravo, Mike Flanagan. He's not only terrific with the script and the direction, but this is a man who's known mostly for horror, as is Stephen King. But of course, King also did Stand By Me and The Shawshank Redemption. And I think his greatest critical acclaim tends to be from those movies that are not typically horror themed. And yet I would also argue that those films and those stories of King's have horrific elements to them, tragedy, scary stuff, villains. And I think that Flanagan's work does too. The shows he's done for Netflix, I think, are very much about people and characters and realistic understanding of the human phenomenon between people and families, albeit maybe done through a little bit of a warped lens of the mystical and or supernatural. So big thumbs up. My hope and praise and fear is that I hope this finds an audience. I don't know if it is. It's a little bit atypical summer fare. Mm-hmm. It is family. I think it is a family film. I think I would take my 10-year-old and say, let's talk about this afterwards and let's start getting you into the intellectual world as opposed to just, oh, Spider-Man, isn't he cool? Yes, he is, but so is this. So I hope it does well because it's an incredible achievement.
Again, very well said, Jeff. It is. I mentioned it is kind of a family film, and I think you're kind of alluding to that too. The only hesitation I would have is it's not for, I don't think, little kids, because there's some,
I said 10. They're cresting into that junior high, right?
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, your mileage varies, right? Because if you've got a horror kid and you're watching Friday the 13th with them when they're 6, they can handle this. But it's fascinating to me because there are horror tropes and horror elements to this movie, or they're presented as such, but then after after you're done, you're thinking back on those moments. Like there was nothing horrific about that at all. Like even the motif of the long look up the stairs with the mysterious padlocked room and that kind of creepy house, and you don't want to go up into that attic. That all, the resolution of that. There are some kind of tragic elements considering what was witnessed up there. But as far as, what ultimately it wasn't something reaching out to grab you or swallow your soul. It wasn't, the clown from It or anything like that. There's a bit of a tension in the first act, which is the third act, involving a mysterious scar that young Chuck has on his hand, or old Chuck, and he kind of get the origin story of that scar. And there's a potential school bully situation. And as we've seen, and even in some Stephen King works, there's like the jilted bully who doesn't like the creative kid who's getting the girl's attention. And the creative kid goes outside and the bully looks at him saying, he's going out there alone and I'm going to meet him out there. We do kind of get that moment here, but we don't get the payoff. But it's great that we don't get the payoff. One of the things I loved about this film is I hadn't seen a trailer. I'd seen like half of a TV spot, but it was mostly about the dancing. And I'm convinced they're selling this on the dancing because completely. You can't talk about anything else without getting into like spoilers, right? But I didn't know what to expect going in. And throughout the entire runtime, I felt off kilter. Like, I don't know where this story is taking me, but I'm along for the ride. And how often can we say that? Agreed. Now, I also want to mention, and folks can disagree with me on the panel, those who have read the short story, but I will say there are, I think, 4 elements that are changed from the short story to the big screen adaptation. They're very subtle, but I think this is just about a perfect page to screen situation, to the point where I went and I read the short story after seeing the movie, and I felt like I was watching the movie all over again. It's uncanny. David, did you feel that? Do you feel that way, Mr. Fowley?
Well, I felt like Mr. Fowley. My dad's not here. Oh no.
I got a Dave and a David on the show. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Right. I'm the id. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had read the book like I probably finished it earlier that day, and there's still a lot. As soon as you finish reading it, there's still a lot to take in, but I feel like the movie helped me with the story because I'm a visual guy, and I feel like even though when you read a story you can visualize it in your mind, I feel like what Flanagan did was just kind of add a lot more colors and tools and everything to just kind of like expand on what was in my head about the story. So I felt like it was a lot more of a fulfilling experience when it comes to the overall story, just seeing it on the screen. I'm not going to say it's better than the book, but I would say that they really go hand in hand, and that could be basically supporting what you just said. Is it's a very loyal adaptation. I picked up on some deviations or differences, but not enough to really tilt the story in a different way.
Right, and I think I want to monologue here, but I think all of the changes are for the better, and they're for the more interesting. There's nothing where I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. And what struck me is, I think because of the partnership that Flanagan and King have had for however many years, they are so in sync that Flanagan, it's weird to think that the stuff he added to the film wasn't stuff that King had cut out of his story, because it feels like King wrote the entire thing himself. So, Mr. Canfield, the other Dave, having read the short story, am I off base here, or are we in simpatico?
Well, I mean, I having not read the short story on my end.
Oh, I thought. I'm sorry. Oh, wait. Who all? I raised the hand. Okay, Katie did. No, Jeff. Okay, you guys are all pointing. You're not in the same
Sorry.
configuration on
Oh,
my screen, so like
sorry.
you're Brady bunching all
It's
over
like the
place.
scarecrow.
Right.
Of course, some people
Yeah.
do go both ways. No, I think you're right. I think that it's very close to it. I mean, I think some casting, some other little minor things that don't really matter as much here. And of course, you're open to interpretation whenever you do any kind of adaptation. The movie doesn't necessarily have that much responsibility to be entirely loyal and connected to the book, though I dare say, I think as far as screen adaptations go, this one is really nip and tuck. You know, I like the Wicked book by Gregory Maguire, and I love the Wicked movie by John M. Chu, but I mean, there are very big differences in the story telling, and I think they both work. Here, the story and film, I think, really are simpatico.
Yeah, very well said.
I
Sorry,
just
Dave,
wanted-
go ahead.
I just wanted to point out too, you know, many people have toyed with King's writing over the years. I mean, he's probably been more adapted than almost any other writer in the 20th century. And he and sometimes to good effect and sometimes to not so much. And then sometimes people argue, like The Shining is a good example. But you know, when Frank Darabont did The Mist, he radically changed the ending of that story. And King actually came out and said that he wished he'd have thought of that ending and that he would have used it. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious to know what King thinks of this film. He tends to be rather effusive in his praise in general these days. Maybe as we get older, we mellow a little bit. But I'd really be interested to hear him talk about his relationship with Flanagan.
Well, I'll just say we started off the year in February talking about another King adaptation, The Monkey, which I saw it, I hated it. Then I read the short story, and I hated it even more. Like I still, and again, folks out there, if you have the time and the inclination, go to kickseat.com, look up my 1,762 word written review to scan for the paragraph in which I post what I hope happens to Mr. Osgood Perkins and what he did to that film. Yeah, but it's a great class in adaptation. You can go one route, which is sort of changing the genre, changing the entire point and feel of the source material in adapting it, or you can go ahead and just adapt it full out. I will say, you know, David, as far as you were talking about the movie, it's not necessarily better than the book, but there's more, I guess, to it to help you kind of understand things. What I noticed was it's a 60-page short story. So you can, depending on your mileage, you can read it in like 2 hours, possibly even less if you have the time and the speed reading capabilities, but it does definitely move. What I noticed is the themes are a lot more obvious, and they're more obvious earlier in the story than in the film because there's so much padding. People usually use that term in a negative way, but here there's so much more going on in terms of additional dialogue and some characters a bit more fleshed out, that the themes are buried within these moments, so they're revealed more gradually as the movie goes on, which I think is definitely a bonus. Yeah, the only other, I guess we'll just jump into I'll just kind of bullet point the differences I spotted between the source material and the movie. They did a race and gender swap of the main busker character from Act 2. The Pocket Queen played Taylor Frank, and in the book, I believe it was just a guy named Jared, if I had that character name correctly. I'm glad because her performance was incredible. I know she's a musician in real life, but I also thought like her dynamic with the other two characters, including Chuck, that she shares in that very short but very impactful segment, was completely magical. Mark Hamill, who we'll talk about a bit more in depth, he plays Chuck's grandpa Albie during the childhood portion. He is a shoe salesman in the story, and he's an accountant in the film. And he also, this is the big difference, there is no grand speech towards the end of the story where he talks to young Chuck about doing the sensible thing and not pursuing his dreams and, doing something, going into accounting. They build a stable life for yourself instead of dancing. But again, I could not believe that was not in the short story. I was really looking forward to reading that again. I'm like, wait, it's not even there? Damn you, Flanagan. But all praise to Flanagan. So yeah, those are the major differences. Katie.
So, question, because the film deals so much with math and numbers and everything. So, does the short story not have that element in it at all?
Not really. Like, there's the whole countdown of the universe thing. That's a fabrication of the screenplay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, the film just is so like in every section of the movie, like math is such like a huge focal point in everything, especially with the grandfather, you know, and because when I was watching it, I got this sense of like a mixture of Fight Club and Big Fish. Like people can have amazing lives, but you don't have to be like, you know, a rock star or a movie star and all that stuff. Like a life is what you make of it. And it's like, you know, when it comes down to the end of it, like what is most important to you? And that's what, so it was, and it's just the way Mark, especially when Mark Hamill was discussing, like, you know, the different things, the universe and the seconds and, you know, the numbers of it. That's really interesting that's not at all in the short story. And I'm going to say it. I think Mark Hamill has a shot at a supporting Oscar nom.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm going to put it out there. And my other thing that I love, especially about Flanagan, if anyone knows his work, I love seeing the Flanagan film family. I'm just putting that out there. I don't think that's trademark yet, but it should be, because to have like Carl Lumbly, Kate Siegel, I mean, everybody like Violet McGraw that's in different series and shows and movies in bigger, small parts. Love it. It's like I'm visiting an old friend. I'm like, hey, I know you. Oh, there you are again. Oh, hey. It's like, so it's like, I don't know. I just love
Carla Gugino is the voiceover of one of the TV voices too.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
She's been in a number of things.
Yeah. So it's just nice to have that.
If I may step in,
the dancing girl.
Yes, that's
breathtaking.
Yes,
so
very
what
good.
A presence of fresh air in that scene.
Oh yeah.
I could be misinterpreting this for Flanagan. We'll let him speak for himself if he calls into the show, writes or sometime gives an interview about this. But I think what he maybe felt, Katie, the need to do here is, I think, to explain, dare I say, a little bit of the context of God, because the book, as you read it, I think becomes about your inner life versus your outer life, and the fact that there are these multitudes inside of us, and that pays off what I think is going on in the third, which is the first act here, of course. He might have gone a little bit more towards personifying it as science because, well, first of all, there is science and math and numbers and that in everything. But I also think it might be an easier thing to hook onto visually when you're looking at a film, which gets to demonstrate things to us. And I think it helps maybe conjure meaning in the schematic of the universe and what we see and how we live, as opposed to the book. When you read it, it's a very intellectual exercise. And I think King's argument is about your inner life can be very rich and very full, even if maybe you don't do anything more than become a shoe salesman. And not saying anything against being a shoe salesman. I think that's one of the points of the book.
Super short. I interviewed Mike Flanagan.
Oh, well, do tell. I'm sorry.
And it was before he was Mike Flanagan, you know, to the world. We were bringing in Doug Jones for a night with Doug Jones. And he has a small part in Absentia, which is a phenomenal little indie horror film that Mike did that you should look at.
It is.
I had to call Mike and ask for a Blu-ray, and he was extremely kind and sent one along so that we could screen it. And we had a long conversation about spirituality. And at the time, I was living in a religious community, and I was coming from more of an evangelical perspective. I'm what you'd call a liberal Christian boogerhead at this point. I'm you know, kind of on the other end of wanting to be involved in the mystery rather than have all the answers. And I think that one of the things he said that always stuck with me was that the unknown is the thing that everybody universally is the most afraid of. And I think in this movie, you know, let's face it, it's hard not to be drawn towards King and his respect for the unknown. and his respect for the majesty of existence. And in some of the stories, it seems like that's a little bit more embodied within a God universe. And in some, it's a more humanistic understanding of the universe. And I think for Mike, there was this probably, and I've seen this in his other work as well, there's this difference between religion and institution and individual search for meaning, whether that's within a direct faith context or just the fact that we all ask the same questions. And I loved the way that this film did that. I felt very moved and accepted as a person, and really want to talk to Mike again because I just love him so much. He's just such a great guy. And we throw these labels around about, oh, I'm in this, or I'm an agnostic, or I'm an atheist, or I'm this, or I'm that. And, I'm a Christian, whatever that means these days. And I just think, man, the what is bigger than that is what draws us together and connects us. And this is so much a part of this film.
Mm-hmm.
I admit I projected myself a lot smaller with the film where, because you're right, you can interpret this in 1,000 different directions. And I kept, obviously the dance is what's being marketed and all that. And I kept thinking about, me, I'm a life lessons guy. I can't go where Dave goes, but just that idea of like, I say it in my review, I'm like, can you assign importance to a single vital event in your life? Like that, this moment of absolute bliss and what informed it to get there, what did it mean to you when it was over? And how did that all, where did it come from? How did it go? What did it mean to you after? And I feel like because the centerpiece is this dance, you get so much of like, well, he learned it from his grandmother. He fought, he got it, got some courage and showed some skill in school. And he, even if he never used it in his life, other than that one moment on that one day in the street, it made him happy. And it set his life for a little bit. And especially when Nick Offerman's giving us the narration that he would die like 6 weeks later, like, you know what, maybe that was probably one of the last moments of bliss in his life. And I kept thinking about how, in the projecting sense of this as a critic or as a reviewer of the film, there's a good chance we all have one of those. Maybe we don't literally go dance in the street with a busker, but like we probably have some little signature inside out level core memory moment that just sticks with us. Like, man, that right there, that was life. That was moment. That was bliss. That was this. And I got it because I learned it this way and it came from this. And it is meant to me this since then. I feel like we all hopefully have one or two or five of those in our lives that all I kept thinking about was this is super specific. Like, this guy, this dance, the end of the world, and then where he got it from. But like, if you can sit back and soak that in and learn the angles of where this story goes for this individual, find that in yourself when you're watching it, because you probably have your one little moment too. Or if you haven't had it, it's coming, and it'll be the thing in your life you might just remember and go, man, that was a good one, and and connecting all that in the core memory orbs of Inside Out. And I hate to bring Pixar into it, but it felt like it was in that ballpark of things.
And, it's interesting. And Dave, you and I talked a bit about this yesterday, but I'll bring it up here. There is, I think, an interpretation of this movie that, I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm religious. I've rediscovered my Catholicism in recent years. But so this is not a knock on anything spiritual, but I feel like there is room for this movie to take place almost outside the context of God. At least in the way that some people are reading into it. Yeah. Unless you're thinking about this in terms of the gift that Chuck receives in the ability to construct this entire universe in his final 8 months of living. Don, I want to correct something. When you said he had 6 weeks to live, it was 8 months. 8 months.
Thank you.
From the time that he was dancing on the promenade to when he's in that hospital bed.
Yeah. Okay.
My theory, and this may be borne out when I go back, and it'd be great if the physical media release of this had a chronological version where you could watch it instead of having to jumble your own chapters. Sure. But I feel like if you watch this movie from end to beginning, which is to say beginning to end, the apocalypse stuff leading all the way back to that dance on the promenade, that's all in Chuck's head. So the childhood bit, and then him walking out into that, on that business trip, and he dances in the street with the busker and the girl who just been dumped. That's all real. And then everything after that is we cut forward 8 months to he has constructed this entire reality. And I think the clue is that you see people and characters in that reality that you later see popping up in the film. Random folks like Chiwetel Ejiofor and Karen Gillan. They're just random people that he saw in high school, like one of the teachers on the faculty, or Chiwetel was, I think, just out. I don't know if they both in the school.
I think they were both teachers.
Okay.
Yes.
But he saw them when he was younger. It's not clear if he had any kind of relationship with them, but they were just faces. Yeah. And later they become the focal point of his end of the world scenario, which ends with the planets, kind of blinking out. And that is his final brain synapses, like firing and going out. So I think this grand fantasy was the defense mechanism. There's a line in the book that Offerman delivers in narration. I don't have the entire thing, but it says, at one point he experienced so much pain that he wondered why God made the world.
Ooh, okay.
And I think that this is him finding a way to deal with that. Now, whether that was a gift from the creator to say, yeah, you're going to have to go through this, but here's a little bit of help in addition to the morphine or whatever
there's
was on.
There's a couple other, dare I say, clues. I know we're talking spoilers.
Oh yeah, we're far into it. Go for it.
Well, for starters, the look of the first act is a little more artificial, particularly the backyard scene when they're watching the sky. In fact, that was the first thing I thought. I said, this might be a dream sequence or something because it doesn't look real, where the rest of the movie was shot pretty accurately to look like a real world and stuff. The other thing too is the teacher and the nurse don't age. And when we see them in the earlier scenes, it's like, why didn't they age? Oh, well, because they're not actually experiencing that. This is what he remembers. They also allude to his pain level, as you just said, as well as the fact that, he wasn't sure of certainties when he was in this state. And that's true of anybody who's dying, anybody who's under the situation where they're taking drugs to ease the pain and help with their last few moments or weeks or whatever it is in life. I just went through that with my mother, who was suffering from dementia for many years, and you couldn't be sure what she was thinking. But I also think it's, dreams, and, the cowboy walks through the party in Mulholland Drive, and then he turns into the villain, threatening Justin Theroux, if you see me once, you'll have done well. If you see me twice, you will have not done well. And he's just this weird guy at a party. It's like, who's that guy? But he's somehow major in the dream. So there's a lot of that here. But I think it all points to the fact that this is all in Chuck's sort of mind, and the sort of weird shift of his physical world, where a lot of this becomes representational, metaphorical. That's why he's sort of in all these places as sort of an ad or a poster. What's that about? Is he a celebrity? Well, these are all people who were part of his life, right? But I also dare say one thing, if you don't mind me just saying real quick, because you brought it up, and about religion and stuff, which I really admire that you said, Ian, is I think this is about God in many ways without necessarily defining it as maybe a way that is the cliche, perhaps, with a lot of the world, maybe in the Bible and stuff like that. I mean, if for people who think, well, this is all just a random thing that somehow, things connect and clunk into each other, and a thousand monkeys ride War and Peace. No, I don't think so. And what Mark Hamill is basically saying is math is in everything. It's in music. It's in language. It's in sort of time and sun and weather, and it's in drawing. I mean, I draw, and if the arm needs to be foreshortened, that's a fraction. Okay, you're foreshortening, and these are versions of math. I mean, I think Mark Hamill, in some respects, is respecting not only respecting the metaphysical and the spiritual, but also maybe the fact that there's explanations, or at least quantifiable things, in even the most strange and mysterious to us. Not all of it, but hints of it. And maybe shame on us for trying to make it also the end of a Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie mystery. It's not that definable. So I think it both embraces the sense of the spiritual, but also maybe hints at ways that we can sort of fathom it a little bit better. And I think that's evidenced even in Flanagan as a filmmaker, giving us hints about this isn't quite as real at first as we maybe are giving it at face value.
Well, I mean, sort of what we're dancing around here, that I love the little ballet we've got going. is that on the one hand, you have, you know, at the end of Dogma, when Alanis Morissette, God, you know, what if God were one of us, and she reaches out and Linda Ferrantino, who's just been through this horrific adventure that's involved all sorts of hardship for her, says, "Why are we here?" She says, "I just have one question. Why are we here?" And Alanis Morissette, God, looks at her and smiles and reaches out and goes, "Whoop," right in her nose, and then goes away. And the sense of, you know, you're getting into something that really isn't the point anymore. The point is the boot. The point is the journey. And I think that Flanagan, by locating meaning within that journey, no matter what you call it, it's an existential leap. It's like saying, hey man, I believe there's meaning. I believe it mattered. And I believe it does matter. And I think that to me is so much more what all of this ought to be about anyway.
Or if it didn't, if it doesn't matter bigger, it mattered to that one guy and that one memory and that one life, you know, like I can narrow it to that too, you know? Yeah.
And what do we emphasize amongst the multitudes inside of us?
Yeah. Because I think about the movie, like he has witnesses to these things. I mean, there are people who watch this junior high dance. There's people who watch this thing in the street, but then there's people who probably never thought about that moment the rest of their lives. Like, oh, remember that guy dancing in the street last week? They probably don't. But to Chuck, that was everything, you know? So I feel like when you walk by places in life, like a park bench or like some place has been somebody's special moment spot that we don't even think about. We walk right over, you know, like just recognizing those in your life or in a life that it is a way of helping you recognize that you got them too. You know, like it's about as far as deep as I got because I couldn't get all, I couldn't go to the clouds y'all go to. But it's I admire that projection and that read of the movie for sure. It's there's you can't not go there because of the heft that is involved for sure. Yeah.
I got a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
I definitely walked away from it, the movie, more so than the book. Well, a little bit the book about just like what part memory has in our life, and not just the things that stand out that you remember. There's what you choose to remember, and then there's what your mind reminds you of. And it comes and goes. It could be about a person. It could be how you feel about a certain event. But it also reminded me of like, we have our memory when we are first person involved in our past. But there's also, I don't know about you all, but there's times where somebody maybe from your past kind of reconnects with you and reminds you or tells you actually a memory that you were a part of that you don't remember at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or that you remember differently.
Yeah. And so I like it reminded me of like, and I've had that happen in the early stages of Facebook when you're reconnecting with like, high school friends and stuff. It's like, hey, so good to see you and connect with you. I don't know if you remember me, but I just remember you were always really kind to me. And I'm like, I was a kind teenager? Wow. Okay. And it's so you just don't remember. And the thing is kindness has various degrees, right? Mm-hmm. Kindness could be like, this guy just actually had a conversation with me in Spanish class or whatever, you know, and that's a memorable moment for that person where I myself don't recall it, you know, and so it just made me think of like the mysteries of the mind and how I like what the narrator said, that like there were so many moments in Chuck's life, but this moment in the promenade dancing was probably the one that he remembers the most. And it's not because it was such a joyous time or anything like that, and it was, but it kind of reinvigorated or reinstilled in him the talents that his grandmother encouraged him, you know, in all those times of encouraging him to, you know, find dance as a passion. And of course, we haven't talked about Mia Sara. I thought she was fantastic.
Amazing.
She was
so good seeing her.
Yeah, and actually, both of those grandparents reminded me of a lot of my grandparents growing up. I spent a lot of time with them. I didn't live with them, but I spent a lot of time with them, and a part of it was that time that I spent with them was more about. I felt more like invited, almost an observer of watching who they are and how they were living. Like
Definitely.
I actually felt that as a grandchild. It's like, I feel like I'm a part of their life and I'm observing this. I'm observing their marriage. I'm observing their laughter, their fun, their arguments. I'm observing all these things, their kindness to others. Because, as a child, you're a sponge, you're absorbing all these things.
Totally.
And, of course, like, just some of those things, like we get a flash in that second act, we get a flash of his memory of his mother with the way she did the whole do. And so it just reminded me of like, we do have a lot inside of us. We really do. And I think too often sometimes we think about the negative and we think about regrets we might have or bad things that have happened to us. But there's actually so many more moments of, little good moments, and little moments of just being content.
Yep.
Well said.
I also think too, pardon me for just building off of David's point for a second, but I also think Flanagan and King have one other theme sort of that's kind of brilliantly brought to the forefront here. And that is the difference in generations too. The Haunted Hill miniseries that he did for Netflix is really about how generations react to certain events. And I just think it was interesting that the grandmother character, who was considerably younger than her husband, had a different take on stuff. But there was a male generation in maybe 3 of them coming off of World War II that thought of, you have to have a job that's responsible. I mean, I was told when I was graduating high school and wanted to go to art school that I should become literally an accountant because you will always find employment as a money and numbers guy. And I thought, that's that generation. And yet, 10 years later, my generation would be probably saying, no, you follow your heart, do what's going to give you joy. You're going to have to do it 8 to 10 hours a day. You better find something you really like. Luckily, I didn't become an accountant. But, I think that is at play generationally here too. And not saying that the grandfather's advice doesn't have some merit to it. Obviously, when he's talking about the numbers, he's right. But, Chuck is more his grandmother's child in a lot of regards, at least in his inner multitudes, I think. And that's kind of a generational thing, too, that he would take that from her more than the typical male fatherhood kind of passing on down, too. And I think that's an interesting theme within King's work as well as Flanagan's.
I don't know. I can't let Luke Skywalker tell me I'm supposed to be an accountant. It's like, no, you don't get to do both of those.
May the ledgers be with you.
He ended up. He was an accountant for at Toshi's Station.
Yeah,
but no,
trading power converters.
But no, it's interesting that he took the safe path. Ultimately, he became an accountant.
Let's do that,
right? But that's the thing is like it's a funny thing, and that's why I want to go back and one of the main reasons I want to revisit this movie is at the end of the movie, if this had been the end of the first act, you might think, oh, he's looking at that room and he sees that he's going to die someday, probably 30 years in the future. So he's looking at his own mortality. He's going to go off and pursue his dreams and his passions because, he's just going to end up there anyway. But he takes the safer route, which ends up, giving him a fulfilling life and a wife and son who I'm sure his life insurance policy is going to take care of them after he's gone, which probably wouldn't have happened if he'd been like a busker on the street or something, but again, I'm not sure exactly if there's a disconnect there or if it's just like, well, he made a decision and he ended up being happy. The dream of being a dancer might have just been a dream or a hobby or a fascination, and that's okay too. Kind of like one of the things we're talking about here. Katie, I want to I feel like we've been not monopolizing the conversation. I want to get your perspective in here. What do you want to talk about? Is there anything you want to build off of, or anything new, like a different point that we should discuss?
I think if they had done this in chronological order, this would be a completely different movie.
Totally.
It's the whole like having that first act being so filled with despair and misery, and just like you're just sinking into a hole, and just talking about, like, especially at the hospital with the nursing staff, how they're like, why does it even matter?
Oh, the
Because,
suicides and
I mean,
because the world's
yeah,
ending, right?
like
Yeah,
people ending their lives, and like that's it. I mean, if that had been the end of the movie, it's like this. No, would be like, this is the worst movie. It's like, oh my god. But to just have everything the way they set it up, I think was done so beautifully. And let's give some acknowledgement to every single person that played Chuck. Like from the teeny tiny little Chuck, who I would guess, since his last name is Flanagan, I'm guessing that he may be Mike and Katie's son,
Yeah, I did.
Cody Flanagan. But then Benjamin Paycheck, who plays him like at 10, 13, something like that. That kid, I mean, I can't wait to see what he's going to do. But then also to make me feel like a freaking grandmother to see Jacob Tremblay be like, who is this? What happened?
Yeah. It's 10 years since Room. Yeah.
has it been 10
amazing.
years? Oh wow.
2015 was Room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
That guy's like 21 years old.
What?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people think they're misremembering. They think that Jacob Tremblay is like the 12, 13-year-old Chuck. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, nay, everyone. He is the very much teenager man now. So no more Room, no more all that stuff, you know, that happened in not Doctor Strange.
He did all kinds of stuff like
Dr. Sleep.
Predator.
Yeah. The friggin'
Yeah.
heartbreaking scene in Dr. Sleep that it's like, oh, you son of a bitch. What did you do? You can't do that to Jacob Tremblay. And like, now he's like an actual guy. I'm like, but he was great too. And also Tom Hiddleston, why is he not in a musical yet? Like, I know when they talked to me about it, I was like, I feel like he's this generation's Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. Like, that guy can dance. I don't know. Oh, he can't sing. He can't sing also. It's like, he needs to be in a musical. Like, he's just amazing. And the whole dance scene, yes, I know it's the one they advertised and all that stuff, but let's be honest, it is magical. And seeing the interviews between Mike Flanagan and Tom Hiddleston, that was done in one take.
That's amazing.
After it was done, I saw an interview. They talked about it. It's multi-camera and stuff. But after it was done, they yelled cut, and Tom, I guess, ran to Mike and it's like, was that it? Did it look as good as it felt? And he was like, that's it. And that's all they did.
Wow.
You know, Katie, I want to touch on something. I am so glad that you brought up the chronological order thing, because I've been thinking about that a lot, but only as from an intellectual exercise.
Sure.
Because it would be very interesting.
Would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like, it would be like, I left this movie in a sort of a wistful, fulfilled, warm state. If it had ended with Chiwetel Ejiofor not being able to finish saying "I love you" before the screen goes dark, you'd have to. I think it still achieves the same thing when you step back and look at the movie as a whole. But you really have to work there intellectually and I think emotionally to come to that conclusion. Now,
you don't have that immediate reaction like you do when you leave the film the way it is set up now. You like would respect it later and have that. It's like it would probably have the opening weekend of Empire Records that we talked about, or the entire run, like $300,000. Bye, Life of Chuck.
I could see people saying, "Oh, this movie's so dark," you know.
Yeah,
well, the hard part, I think, the hard part is going to be getting over that third/first act. Like, you're going to open with this despair and, like you said, lack of themes, and you got to wait for people to get through that, and a dance scene left after you watch some planets blink away. But you're asking for some audience patience nowadays to get to that third/first act to really get where this is going, and still, like you said, come to that ending with the life affirming effect that you're hoping for. Watching it linearly, if we did, like, because I got that Memento DVD where you can watch it forwards, which is fun on the wall. But like, I think there's probably a good chance you watch this movie thanks to Offerman's narration, that you know the dream sequence is coming and you end on the dream, where watching the planets blink out might, like you said, will stir an effect because you're like, damn, wow, we're just ending things right here, right? Like, you're just watching it happen. It might not be as mysterious as it does this way, but I think the impact would still be there if you watch it linearly. Because you might know it's coming, and I know that's an easy crux or shortcut in training wheels, but for some people it would be a fascinating experience, you know.
Well, you got to think too. I mean, what about the empty room? What about the
right.
elephant?
You walk away from that to a dance scene, you know?
We're all afraid of the empty room. We're all terrified we won't get to finish saying "I love you."
Yeah.
And the truth is you have a finite number of "I love yous" on this earth.
Yeah.
The truth is the empty room. And if you can have hope in the midst of the empty room, maybe you have done what you are supposed to do as a human being. Maybe you have honored your existence, your creation. And I think that I can stand with anyone who gives me that sort of hope. Because, man, the world is strip mining my soul all the time.
Ooh, that's a good line. Strip mining my soul. I mean, it's horrible that it is, but yes, that is so. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, I want to end on a hopeful note, so we're going to go to some comments.
Yeah.
Rewinding back to the beginning of the hour, David Wilt says, another David. I think that what makes Stephen King such a very unique writer is that he is not just a horror writer, but he delves into coming-of-age narratives like A Story of the Body, which later became the iconic movie Stand By Me, which tells the story about a group of kids who go on a search to find a corpse. The movie presents itself as a version of The Goonies. Corey Feldman is in both, but I think that's where the comparison ends.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah,
respectfully. I can just see like Chunk going. I just want to see Chunk going, hey, you guys want to go see a dead body?
Right.
All right. This time I'm telling the truth. Sajiwa says a lot of people showed up for the panel this time. Good work, critics being productive.
Wait, critics are people?
Yeah, for the smallest movie this weekend too. You know, like, we're here for Life of Chuck. We're not here for the other 6 things. You know, let's go. Yeah.
Look, I hope this movie does some kind of business, if for no other reason than what Katie said. Because Katie, I have this horrible feeling that if this movie flops or underperforms, I don't even know what performance looks like in terms of the metrics they're looking at from Neon. I don't think Hiddleston is going to go near any kind of a dance or a musical thing. They're gonna be like, oh, remember that thing you tried to do that didn't quite work out? No one cared. He's like, maybe you're right.
Let's just remember though that the Shawshank Redemption, it took a while for that to
but we don't get we don't have the DVD VHS cable TV market though. Like that's TNT's boost,
TNT.
You know?
Yeah,
we don't have that anymore. You need that's asking for this to flop and end up on Netflix, and we hope it gets seen on the weekly top 10. You know,
and
I hope not.
Honestly,
I don't want that. Yeah.
And folks out there, if you're watching this and you've watched this far, then you have seen the movie. I'm trusting you because we've talked about the entire thing. But if for whatever reason you haven't seen it, and we are encouraging you to go see it in a theater, not only to support this kind of a great adaptation and a wildly different, shot for Stephen King, at least as far as most of output, but it's also just a great movie to see with people on the big screen. It's a shame this thing isn't in IMAX, because it really is kind of delightful and larger than life, as they say.
It's a tree of life with a plot.
Camp completist.
What's that?
It's especially for Heather Langenkamp completists.
That's right.
That's right.
And, I mean, this is like an independent, big budget film. Like, I love how we're talking about it. It's like this had a very, $1 million budget, but we're talking about it like it's an independent, small thing. It's like, hey, everybody, support the thing. Look, this is an amazing film. Whether some people call it pretentious, whether they don't like it and didn't necessarily get it or whatever, go see it, enjoy it. It's got a great freaking soundtrack, amazing character actors in it. And again, if anything, Flanagan's film family is like something that you cannot disagree. Each one of them are just phenomenal. So go see it. It's best film of the year.
Well, one thing, speaking of the film family, something I forgot to mention, February gave us The Monkey.
Yes.
Which, if I had a soundboard, I would use the flushing toilet effect. But it also gave us Captain America: Brave New World, which featured Carl Lumbly, who I really love as an actor. But what I love about Life of Chuck is this proves why he is a great actor, instead of just like a bunch of kind of like the theater kid fanboys saying, Carl Lumbly's in this, he's great. Well, okay, he's just kind of, it proved to me that he's great. That proof is in this movie.
He's had that proof for a long time. Go watch Men of Honor 2002.
Well, but that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Captain America did not give him any kind of a showcase to. He was just a name, right?
I got you.
And then Zalise Liddell, hello from Australia. I'm glad this movie is going well. Finally, something unique has been released without the excessive gore too, which is a bonus. Yes, very well said.
I don't know. I think this could have used a monkey. I think that if there had been a monkey in it, and
the monkey's in the cupola.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? Shit.
What if the monkey had been in the cupola, Ian? What would
my gosh! Wow. Brooks is hanging there from Shawshank. Brooks was here.
Oh, jealousy.
Oh, here she goes.
Katie, you are holding up the best thing about the monkey, the film.
Okay.
Did Life of Chuck have a popcorn thing? Because I am just a major.
What would it be?
I will just get all of them. It's
what would
crazy.
it be?
It did when it was originally called The Life of Upchuck, but then they had to change.
Wow!
They had to change it.
I was going to say, on that vein, Mr. Canfield, I think The Life of Chuck popcorn bucket would be a hospital bedpan.
Ouch. An IV bag.
No, that's the special drink holder. Yeah.
Oh, the eye when you say that.
Dancing shoes
would be the cupola.
Dancing shoes.
Hey, there it is.
You can eat popcorn out of.
Maybe just a little mini.
You stuff popcorn in it after you stuff the Kleenex in it.
Head.
Tip jar. A little cash in there.
Yeah.
Napkins.
Take off his head, or that could be a drink.
Hey, David, I don't want to ruin your summer, but they're going to put popcorn in Superman's pants in 2 weeks. So,
I saw that.
Trend. I love it, and I can't afford any of them. And I want that monkey popcorn bucket, and I'm glad I'm alive, but it's killing me.
You know what? If you wait long enough,
they go down
like $11. I mean, they really go down in like after a couple weeks. Okay. Well, not the monkey one, but all the other ones.
Okay.
Oh, good. I'll be able to get the Thunderbolts one. Oh, good.
I want the Thunderbolts one. It's a
cool
2-in-1. It's a popcorn bucket and a drink thing. Well,
it
has limo.
It's also a piece of crap, so it's a threefer.
Mission Impossible has working binoculars, which would help Ian to see how good the monkey really is.
And that's great. And it'll take you 3 hours to eat all the popcorn in there, just like the movie.
Oh, God.
Dave, you have brought us right back to blasphemy.
I don't even eat popcorn. I can't help any of you. I hate popcorn.
Oh, I don't eat it either. I just watch these stupid things.
I sold it every night for 4 years of high school student council. I'm sick of it. Burnt it, done everything you could possibly do to popcorn for a PG-rated show, and I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore.
Everything you can do to popcorn meat.
I was trying to clean it up. Right?
Don't ask Don about the extra butter when they ran out. He's like, I can help.
Yeah.
Anyway,
butter flavored topping.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why I love that line from Leap of Faith, where Steve Martin is talking about the hometown theater, the kind with the real butter.
Oh boy.
All right, so
love that.
We're going to leave it there. Fact check. Is it true that the Galactus popcorn bucket from the Fantastic Four holds 2 large popcorns? I think I read that somewhere.
It's
shit.
Yeah.
Popcorn.
That would be cool.
It is a lot. That's for like a family size. You're passing Galactus's head back and forth. Anyhow,
handles at least, Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. We're going to leave it there. Oh, there goes the Dune.
No, that's
Speaking of the extra butter,
Mhm.
I've got
I mean-
2 of those too,
course
which
you do.
that might pay for a house someday.
Yeah, those are wicked. Yeah.
These are
It looks like
actually
Doom
going up
number
in
2.
price.
Doom number 2.
It looks like a dental
Wait till
appliance.
number 3. Oh boy,
no,
I'm not going to say a word.
I was going to say, especially if it's not used, then yeah, you could buy a house with that. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up next week. Join us back here Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central. We're going to do one of my favorite shows. Here we go again. How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
The 2010 animated film and the remake, which is also opening up this weekend. So it's going head to head with Chuck. We'll be back here next week talking about is it worth your time or is it not? We're going to have some varied opinions on that film, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. I am joined as always by Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive, Dave Canfield, aka the Creature Feature Preacher. Again, check out his Substack below. Jeff York of the EstablishingShot.org and Pipeline Artist, David Fowley of Keeping It Real, and of course, Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front with the Jason mask.
Friday
Nice.
13th. It's
Friday
coming out.
13th.
That's when the movie comes
here.
out.
That's
Just
right.
today.
All
Well,
my
it's-
stuff and my things.
It's not today, David. We're doing it live now. We're looking at now, sir.
Now, right now, Spaceballs
Yes.
in this out here. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. You picked up what I laid down.
I-
Anyway, but yeah, folks out there, if you enjoyed this show, I assume that means that you've seen the movie already. And if you like this live stream, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Support all of Earth's Mightiest Critics, whose information is down below. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much. Take care and go support this movie. I'm
Yes.
taking off my impartiality hat. Not that I ever have it on, but I'm really an advocate for this one. It's a delight. So thank you.